Look out your living room window. The sky isn't blue anymore. It's an unsettling shade of amber. You check the news, the fire is 20 miles away. You aren't under an evacuation order yet. You feel safe. But in reality, the most dangerous part of the wildfire has already crossed your threshold. We spend a lot of time talking about go bags and evacuation routes, but for many of us living in these quiet cul-de-sacs, perhaps managing arthritis, relying on daily medications, or simply not moving as fast as we used to, evacuation isn't always the first option, nor is it always the safest one. Here is the truth that often gets lost in the panic. Smoke kills more people than flames. We aren't just talking about the smell of a campfire. We are talking about PM2. 5 microscopic particles 30 times smaller than a human hair. They are so small, they don't just sit in your lungs. They can bypass your body's natural defenses and enter your bloodstream, traveling directly to your heart and even your brain. And when the power grid starts to flicker and the AC unit struggles under the heat, your single-story home stops being just a house. It becomes your primary life support system. You don't need to be a firefighter to survive this. You don't need to run, and you certainly don't need to fight. You just need to be smarter than the air outside. If that amber haze is settling over your street today, these are the 7 indoor decisions that matter more than evacuation. These are small, calm adjustments to your home environment that can mean the difference between a hospital visit and riding out the crisis in safety. Let's secure your sanctuary. Before we begin, I have a question for those of us who might find moving quickly difficult. If you rely on a walker, a wheelchair, or oxygen tanks, what is your plan B if the air quality drops but you cannot leave? Please leave a comment below. Your experience might help someone else in this community solve a problem they haven't even thought of yet. Decision 1. Seal the packaging. Sealing the envelope. We often think of our home as a solid box, but in the eyes of physics, your house is more like a living, breathing organism. When wildfire smoke surrounds your neighborhood, the goal isn't just to close the doors, it is to stop the house from inhaling. Start with the obvious windows and doors. But here is a small detail that most people miss, yet it makes a critical difference. Do not just slide your windows shut and gauge the lock mechanism. Most modern windows are designed with a compression seal. Merely closing them leaves a microscopic gap, but turning the lock actively pulls the sashes together, compressing the rubber gasket and cutting air infiltration by up to 50%. It takes 0 extra energy, but it doubles your protection. Next, we need to address how your home moves air. In a single-story house, especially during a hot afternoon, hot air rises into your attic. As that air escapes through roof vents, it creates a vacuum effect downstairs. This invisible suction force pulls smoke in from the outside, through your electrical outlets, baseboards, and even the weep holes in your window frames. You aren't just letting smoke in. Your house is actively sucking it in. To counter this, you don't need heavy equipment. You need a roll of blue painter's tape. It is gentle on your paint and easy to tear with arthritic hands. Walk the perimeter of your clean room. Tape over the electrical outlets on the exterior walls. If you have a fireplace, ensure the flue damper is closed tight. If it feels drafty, stuff a trash bag filled with old towels into the opening. Finally, look at your bathroom exhaust fans and the dryer vent. If these lack a strong backdraft damper, they are open highways for smoke. A simple piece of plastic wrap taped over the bathroom fan grill or a damp towel rolled up at the base of the exterior doors effectively breaks that airflow. We are not trying to make a submarine. We are simply reducing the flow rate so your lungs and your air filters don't have to work so hard. Decision 2. HVAC mode, the most important button. Now that we have sealed the perimeter, we must look at the lungs of your home, which is your central heating and cooling system. In a heat wave combined with smoke, the instinct for many seniors is to turn the air conditioning off entirely to keep the smoke out. This is a dangerous mistake because in a single-story home with windows sealed shut indoor temperatures can spike to deadly levels within hours. Heat stroke will incapacitate you faster than smoke will, so we need the system running, but we need to change how it runs. Walk to your thermostat where most of us leave the fan setting on auto. This means the fan only runs when the air is being cooled, but today I want you to flip that switch to on. When you switch the fan to ON, you stop using your HVAC merely as a temperature controller and transform it into a 24-hour commercial-grade air scrubber. The air in your home will now pass through the filter continuously and strip out particles again and again rather than letting them settle on your furniture and bed sheets when the AC cycles off. However, this strategy relies entirely on the filter you have installed. Those cheap and see-through blue fiberglass filters you buy in bulk are useless against wildfire smoke, as they are designed to stop cat hair rather than poison. You need a pleated filter, but here is where you must be careful. You might be tempted to buy the most expensive and thickest filter you can find, like a MERV 16 or HEPA grade. Do not do this. An overly dense filter creates so much air resistance that it can actually burn out the blower motor of an older HVAC unit in less than a week, in a crisis where no repairman is coming. Losing your cooling system is a catastrophe. The sweet spot for safety is MERV 13, which is fine enough to capture 90% of smoke particles, but permeable enough to keep your aging system running safely. There is one crucial exception for those who live in the dry Southwest and use an evaporative cooler or swamp cooler. You must turn it off immediately, because unlike central AC, which recycles indoor air, a swamp cooler functions by sucking hundreds of gallons of outside air directly into your living room every hour. Using it during a wildfire is essentially pumping poison directly into your sanctuary. Decision 3. Set up clean room. Even with your windows locked and your HVAC filter upgraded, we must accept a hard truth, which is that in a prolonged event, some smoke will inevitably breach your perimeter. Trying to keep a 2,000 square foot home perfectly pristine is a losing battle that will drain your energy and your supplies. Instead of fighting a war on all fronts, we are going to retreat to a citadel within the fortress by establishing a designated clean room. This room is usually the master bedroom for a very practical reason. It typically has an attached bathroom, which allows you to relieve yourself and wash up without ever opening the door to the compromised air in the rest of the house. Once you choose this space, you must bring in everything you need for the next 24 hours, including your medications, a case of water, non-perishable snacks, and your phone charger. Think of this as an airlock on a spaceship where once the door is closed, it stays closed. Here is the physiological reality that changes how we approach this crisis. Your body possesses a remarkable ability to filter and eject smoke particulates from the bloodstream, but it can only perform this deep cleaning function if you grant it 8 hours of near-zero exposure while you sleep. This means you can tolerate slightly smoky air in the living room during the day to cook or check the news, as long as your nighttime recovery in the clean room is absolute. To achieve this absolute purity, you will move your portable air purifier into this room and run it on the highest setting. If you do not have a machine, we will discuss a homemade solution next. You will then take a damp towel and wedge it tightly into the gap at the bottom of the bedroom door. This wet barrier does two things, as it physically blocks the draft, and the moisture acts as a magnet that traps dust particles trying to migrate in from the hallway. From this moment on, your world has shrunk to these 4 walls. It is a smaller life for a few days, but it is a safe one, where your lungs can finally stop fighting and start repairing. Decision 4. Active air filtration. When the sky turns orange, every store within 100 miles will sell out of commercial air purifiers instantly. If you are lucky enough to own a HEPA machine, you are ahead of the curve, but you must check one specific setting right now. Many modern units come with a feature often labeled as ionizer or plasma wave, which claims to freshen the air. You need to find that button and turn it off immediately, because in a smoke-filled room, these electronic gimmicks can generate ozone, which is a potent lung irritant that attacks the very respiratory tissue you are trying to save. However, for those of you staring at empty store shelves or living on a fixed pension, do not despair. The most effective tool for this crisis is not found in a high-end electronics store, but in the lumber aisle of your local hardware store. It is a concept called the Corsi-Rosenthal box, and it requires nothing more than a standard 20-inch box fan for MERV 13 furnace filters and a roll of duct tape. By taping these filters into a cube shape and placing the fan on top to pull air through them, you create a powerhouse of filtration that is surprisingly quiet and incredibly efficient. Here is the engineering reality that the expensive brands do not want you to know. This homemade contraption, which costs about the price of a takeout dinner, actually creates more clean air per minute than a $500 hospital-grade machine, simply because the massive surface area allows it to process 5 times the volume of air without straining the motor. In a slow collapse scenario, where the power grid becomes unstable due to heat stress, these simple fans are also far more resilient than digital appliances. A voltage drop might fry the circuit board of a fancy smart purifier, but a mechanical box fan will just spin a little slower and keep working. For those of us with limited hand strength or arthritis, even a simplified version works wonders. Just take one single MERV 13 filter and tape it directly to the back of a box fan. It is not as powerful as the cube, but it will scrub the air in a small bedroom effectively. This is not about aesthetics or buying the best brand. It is about survival engineering, using what you have to protect who you love when the supply chain leaves you behind. Decision 5. The cleanliness and cooking paradox. We have spent all this energy securing the house, but we often forget that the ultimate filter is your own body. In a survival situation, especially one involving an invisible toxic threat, the natural human reaction is anxiety, which manifests as pacing the floor or constantly checking windows. You must fight this urge with everything you have, because physics dictates that your activity level is directly tied to your survival time. When you are sitting still in a chair reading a book, you breathe about 6 liters of air per minute, but the moment you stand up and start pacing around the kitchen in a nervous state, that volume doubles or even triples. This means that by simply choosing to remain sedentary, you are literally cutting the dose of poison entering your bloodstream by half compared to someone who is active. For the next few days, your job is not to fix things or move boxes, but to sit as still as a stone and let the crisis pass over you. There is another biological defense you must maintain, which is your hydration levels. We often forget to drink water when we are just sitting around, but in a smoke event, your body's mucous membranes are your first line of defense. Think of the lining of your throat and nose as sticky fly paper designed to trap particles before they reach the deep lungs. If you become dehydrated, that fly paper dries out and cracks, allowing toxic particles to bypass your upper defenses and travel straight into your bronchial tubes. You need to drink water methodically, even if you do not feel thirsty, to keep that internal shield functional. Finally, we must address the use of masks inside the home. While an N95 mask is the gold standard for outdoor protection, it creates significant resistance to breathing, which can be dangerous for elderly individuals with pre-existing heart or lung conditions. Wearing a tight mask for hours while sitting on your sofa can elevate your heart rate and cause carbon dioxide retention, which leads to confusion and dizziness. Unless the smoke inside is visibly thick, it is often safer for a vulnerable person to rely on the clean room and the air purifier, rather than struggling to breathe through a heavy mask for days on end, which adds stress to an already tired heart. Decision 6. Physiological control. We have fortified the house, but now we must fortify the pilot. In a survival scenario involving invisible toxins, your own biology can either be your last line of defense or your greatest liability. The natural reaction to seeing smoke is anxiety, which drives you to pace the floor, check the windows constantly, or frantically reorganize your supplies. You must suppress this instinct because physics dictates that every time you stand up and move across the room, you are literally doubling the volume of air you inhale, and therefore doubling the dose of poison entering your bloodstream. For the elderly specifically, the battle is won by doing absolutely nothing. By remaining sedentary in your clean room, you keep your respiration rate at a baseline of about 6 liters per minute, but the moment you engage in light activity, like cleaning, that number spikes. Think of your body as a filter with a limited lifespan. The slower you run air through it, the longer it lasts. There is a second physiological lever you must pull, which involves your hydration. Most people wait until they are thirsty to drink, but in a smoke event you must drink water methodically like it is medicine. Your nose and throat are lined with mucous membranes that act as sticky fly paper, designed to trap ash and particles before they reach your lungs. If you allow yourself to become dehydrated even slightly, this internal shield dries out and cracks, allowing the microscopic PM2.5 particles to bypass your upper defenses and travel straight into your bloodstream. Finally, we must address a silent danger in your medicine cabinet. The stress of being trapped indoors might tempt you to take a sleeping pill or pour a glass of wine to calm your nerves. You must avoid this at all costs because sedatives and alcohol depress your respiratory drive, which reduces your oxygen intake in an already oxygen-poor environment, and more importantly, they dull your senses. If the wind shifts and a spark ignites your roof, you need to be alert enough to wake up and evacuate instantly, not groggy and disoriented. Decision 7. The venting window. We have reached the final and perhaps the most frightening decision, which is knowing when to break your own seal. After days of living in a sealed box, there is a new enemy accumulating inside called carbon dioxide. As you breathe, you exhale CO2, and in a perfectly taped-up house, levels can rise quickly, causing headaches, lethargy, and confusion, which you might mistake for smoke inhalation. This creates a dangerous feedback loop where you feel sick, so you seal the house tighter, which only makes you sicker. To survive this, you must become a hunter of fresh air. You cannot rely on your eyes because by the time you see smoke, it is too thick, But you also cannot rely on your nose because after hours of exposure, you become desensitized to the smell of ash. You need a digital scout. This is where a simple smartphone app like Air Visual or Purple Air becomes your most valuable survival tool because it allows you to see the invisible waves of the fire. Here is the data point that surprises most people. Wind patterns often shift dramatically between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., creating a temporary pocket of cleaner air even in the middle of a massive wildfire event. While the rest of the world is sleeping, you need to be watching that app waiting for the AQI number to drop into the yellow or even the high orange zone. When that window of opportunity opens, you must execute a rapid flush. Turn off your AC and open every door and window in the house simultaneously for exactly 10 minutes to replace the stale CO2-laden air with oxygenated air from outside. It feels counterintuitive to invite the outside in, but this brief exchange recharges the oxygen levels in your home for the next 24 hours. Think of it like a submarine surfacing for air before diving back into the deep. Once the time is up, you lock everything down again, turn your purifiers back to high, and resume your wait. You have just bought yourself another day of clarity and safety. Ultimately, surviving a wildfire smoke event from within your own home is not about heroic feats of strength or having a bunker full of expensive supplies. It is about a series of small, calm, and deliberate choices made before the crisis peaks. The myth that we often tell ourselves is that safety only exists in running away, but for many of us, standing our ground is not a choice, but a necessity dictated by our health and our circumstances. By sealing your envelope, filtering your air, and mastering your own physiology, you are taking back control from a chaotic situation and transforming your home from a trap into a life support system. However, knowledge without preparation is just anxiety in waiting. You cannot tape up your vents if you do not have the tape, and you cannot build a filtration fan if you do not have the filters. The best time to buy these simple items is right now, while the sky is still blue and the store shelves are full. Go to the hardware store this week and pick up a roll of blue painter's tape. 2 MERV 13 filters and a box fan. Put them in the back of your closet and forget about them. Knowing they are there will give you a peace of mind that is worth more than any insurance policy, because when the smoke returns, you will not panic like everyone else. You will simply lock the door, close the curtains, and quietly implement the plan you already made. When the winds finally change and the amber haze lifts, you will emerge not just as a survivor, but as a guardian who protected your household with wisdom rather than speed. You will be tired, and your house will need a good cleaning, but you will be safe. And most importantly, your lungs will be healthy enough to enjoy the fresh air once again. For those of you watching who have lived through these smoke events before, I want to hear from you in the comments below. If you have a specific trick for sealing up an old, drafty house, or a way to keep cool without electricity that does not require heavy lifting, please share it. Your practical experience could be the missing piece of the puzzle that saves a neighbor from making a dangerous mistake during the next fire season.